I still remember the exact moment I realized my family was broken. I was 7 years old, sitting at the kitchen table with my coloring book, and my parents were in the living room having what they thought was a quiet argument. But I heard everything, every single word. My mom's voice was trembling when she said she felt invisible, and my dad responded with silence. That terrible, suffocating silence that would become the soundtrack of my childhood. You know, people always talk about families that scream and yell, families that throw things and slam doors. But nobody ever talks about the families that just stop talking. The families where silence becomes a weapon sharper than any word could ever be. That was my family. We were experts at not saying what needed to be said, masters of swallowing our feelings until they turned into something toxic that poisoned all of us from the inside out. My name is Sarah, and this is the story of how I grew up in a house full of people who loved each other but had completely forgotten how to show it. This is about the fragments of a relationship that was supposed to be unbreakable, about the conflicts that never got resolved because nobody had the courage to address them, and about my silent scream that nobody heard for almost 2 decades. I need to take you back to understand how we got here. My parents met in college. Dad was studying engineering, Mom was an art major. Everyone said they were opposites who attracted, that they balanced each other out. Dad was logical, practical, always thinking 3 steps ahead. Mom was creative, emotional, lived in the moment. And for a while, it worked. I've seen the photos from their wedding, from their early years together. They looked happy, really, genuinely happy. Then I came along. I was their miracle baby, Mom always said. They'd been trying for 5 years, had almost given up hope. When I was born, Dad cried. Mom told me that story 100 times, how this stoic man who never showed emotion just broke down in tears when he held me for the first time. I was supposed to complete their perfect little family. I was supposed to be the thing that brought them even closer together. But somewhere along the way, something shifted. Dad's career took off. He started working longer hours, traveling more for business. Mom put her art dreams on hold to take care of me full time. She never said she resented it, but I could see it in her eyes sometimes when she'd look at her. Old paintings in the garage, covered in dust. There was this sadness there, this longing for a version of herself she'd left behind. The arguments started small. Dad would come home late, dinner would be cold, Mom would make a comment, Dad would apologize, and that would be it. But then the apologies started sounding hollow. Then they stopped coming altogether. Then Dad started eating dinner at the office before coming home. And Mom stopped cooking altogether. I was 9 when I first heard the word divorce. I was supposed to be asleep, but I'd gotten up to get water. They were in their bedroom, and the door wasn't completely closed. Mom was crying, asking Dad if he even loved her anymore. And there was that silence again. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds of absolutely nothing. When Dad finally spoke, all he said was, "I'm tired, Margaret. Can we not do this tonight?" That moment changed something in me. I realized that my dad's silence wasn't just about being quiet. It was about refusing to engage, refusing to be vulnerable, refusing to admit that things were falling apart. And my mom's tears weren't just about sadness. They were about feeling completely alone, even though she was married, even though she had a daughter, even though she was surrounded by people who were supposed to love her. From that night on, I became hyper-aware of every interaction between them. I started cataloging the silences, counting the hours they could go without speaking to each other. I noticed how they'd coordinate their schedules to avoid being home at the same time. How Dad would suddenly remember he needed something from the hardware store right after dinner. How Mom would decide to reorganize the linen closet the moment Dad settled in to watch TV. They thought they were protecting me by not fighting in front of me. But here's what they didn't understand. Kids know. Kids always know. We can feel the tension in the air like a change in atmospheric pressure before a storm. We can read the subtle body language, the way Mom's shoulders would tense when she heard Dad's car in the driveway, the way Dad's jaw would clench when Mom asked him about his day. I became a ghost in my own home, trying to make myself as small and unnoticeable as possible. I thought if I was perfect, if I got straight A's, if I never caused any trouble, maybe they'd stop being so unhappy. Maybe they'd remember why they fell in love in the first place. I was 10 years old, and I genuinely believed it was my responsibility to fix my parents' marriage. Middle school was when things really started to deteriorate. Mom went back to work part-time at an art supply store. I think she needed something that was hers, some identity outside of being a wife and mother. Dad seemed relieved, actually. It meant even less time they had to spend together. They were like two strangers sharing a house, coordinating custody of their own lives. The worst part wasn't the big moments. It was the small ones. It was sitting at the dinner table in complete silence, the only sound being forks scraping against plates. It was Christmas mornings where we'd open presents with forced smiles, going through the motions of a happy family for a camera that nobody would ever look back at those photos. It was my birthday parties where Mom and Dad would stand on opposite sides of the room, and I'd have to shuttle between them like a tiny diplomat. I started having these anxiety attacks when I was 12. I didn't know that's what they were at the time. I just knew that sometimes I couldn't breathe, that my chest would get tight, that I'd feel like I was drowning even though I was sitting in math class or lying in my bed. My parents never noticed. They were too wrapped up in their own silent war to see that their daughter was falling apart. High school was my escape. I joined every club I could find, volunteered for every committee, said yes to every social invitation. Anything to avoid going home to that suffocating house where love had turned into obligation and marriage had become a prison neither of my parents knew how to escape from. My friends would complain about their parents being too involved, too nosy, too strict. I'd just smile and nod, wishing my parents cared enough to be annoying. There was this moment during my junior year that really crystallized everything for me. We had this assignment in English class where we had to write about our hero. Most kids wrote about athletes or historical figures or their grandparents. I sat at my desk for 3 hours, staring at a blank page, and I realized I didn't have a hero. Not because there weren't good people in my life, but because the two people who were supposed to show me what love looked like had instead shown me what happens when two people are too afraid to be honest with each other. I wrote about my English teacher instead, Mrs. Rodriguez, who actually listened when students talked, who made you feel seen and valued. My mom read it when it came back with an A+, and I saw something break in her eyes. She asked me why I didn't write about her or Dad, and I didn't have the heart to tell her the truth. So I lied. I said I wanted to honor a teacher because they don't get enough recognition. She seemed to accept that, but I think we both knew it was bullshit. Senior year, the college application process became another battlefield. Dad wanted me to study something practical, engineering like him, or business, something that would guarantee a good job and financial security. Mom wanted me to pursue whatever made me happy, to not make the same mistake she did by giving up on her dreams. And I was stuck in the middle, trying to please both of them while having no idea what I actually wanted for myself. I ended up applying to schools across the country, California, New York, anywhere that was far enough away that I couldn't just drive home on weekends. I needed distance, I needed space to figure out who I was without the constant weight of my parents' unhappiness pressing down on me. When I got into USC, Dad was proud but disappointed I was going so far away. Mom was sad but understanding. Neither of them asked me why I was so desperate to leave. The night before I left for college, we had what I guess you could call a family dinner. Mom made my favorite meal, lasagna with garlic bread. Dad came home early from work. We sat at the table, and for the first time in years, we actually talked. Not about anything important, just surface-level stuff about my classes, my roommate, the weather in Los Angeles. But it was something. It was more than we'd had in a long time. After dinner, Mom hugged me tight and whispered that she was sorry. She didn't specify what she was sorry for, and I didn't ask. I think we both knew she was apologizing for everything and nothing at the same time. Dad shook my hand, then pulled me into an awkward hug and told me to call if I needed anything. I nodded, knowing I probably wouldn't. College was supposed to be my fresh start, my chance to reinvent myself away from the dysfunction of my childhood. And in a lot of ways, it was. I made friends, joined clubs, even dated a few people. But I realized pretty quickly that I had no idea how to be in a healthy relationship. I'd never seen one modeled for me. I didn't know what normal conflict resolution looked like. I didn't understand that it was okay to be angry, to express needs, to expect your partner, to actually communicate with you. My first serious relationship was with this guy named Jake. He was great on paper, smart, funny, ambitious. But whenever we'd have a disagreement, I'd shut down completely. I'd go silent, just like my dad. Or I'd cry and feel invisible, just like my mom. I was perpetuating the exact same toxic patterns I'd grown up with. And I didn't even realize it until Jake broke up with me because he said dating me was like trying to have a relationship with a ghost. That breakup sent me into therapy. Best decision I ever made. Dr. Chen was this kind, patient woman who let me unpack 18 years of trauma in her small office with the comfortable chairs and the box of tissues that seemed to never empty. She was the first person I told about the silences, about feeling responsible for my parents' happiness, about the anxiety attacks, and the constant feeling that I was somehow fundamentally broken. She taught me that what I experienced was a form of emotional neglect, that children need more than just food and shelter and a roof over their heads. They need to see healthy conflict resolution, healthy expressions of love, healthy boundaries. They need parents who are emotionally present and available. I didn't have that. Neither of my parents meant to hurt me, but their inability to deal with their own pain meant they couldn't see mine. I'm 25 now. I talk to my parents separately a few times a month. They're still married somehow. Still, living in that same house, still sleeping in the same bed, still maintaining the illusion of a partnership that died years ago. I've asked them both, individually, why they don't just get divorced. Mom says it's complicated, that they have a history together, that marriage is about commitment. Dad says divorce would be expensive and disruptive, that they're fine the way things are. But they're not fine. I can hear it in Mom's voice when she calls me late at night after Dad's gone to bed. I can see it in Dad's eyes on the rare occasions I visit home. They're both lonely, both stuck, both too afraid or too proud or too tired to make a change. And the saddest part is that I think they still love each other, somewhere deep down. They just forgot how to show it, forgot how to bridge the gap that widened between them year after year after year. As for me, I'm still in therapy. I'm learning how to communicate, how to be vulnerable, how to trust that expressing my needs won't make me a burden. I'm learning that silence isn't strength, that conflict doesn't have to be catastrophic, that it's possible to love someone and be angry with them at the same time. I'm learning how to break the cycle. I'm dating someone now. Her name is Emma, and she's taught me that relationships can be safe, that they can be a place where you're encouraged to be your full, authentic self. When we disagree, we talk about it. We don't let things fester. We don't weaponize silence. We don't make each other guess what we're feeling. It's still hard for me sometimes, but I'm getting better. I think about that 7-year-old girl sitting at the kitchen table with her coloring book, listening to her parents' marriage crack apart. I wish I could go back and tell her that it wasn't her fault, that she didn't have to carry that weight, that she deserved better. But I can't. All I can do is make sure that if I ever have kids, they'll never have to wonder if their parents love each other. They'll never have to become translators of silence. They'll never have to carry the burden of a broken relationship that isn't theirs to fix. This is my story, These are the fragments of my parents' relationship, the silences that shaped me, the conflicts that were never resolved, and the silent scream that I finally found my voice to release. If you're living in a house full of silences, if you're a kid trying to hold together parents who are falling apart, I need you to hear this. It's not your job. It was never your job. You deserve to be seen, to be heard, to be loved without conditions or complications. And if you're a parent going through something similar, please, I'm begging you, talk to each other, fight if you have to. Go to therapy. Get divorced if that's what's best. But don't stay together in miserable silence thinking you're protecting your kids. Because I promise you, they know. And they're carrying your pain along with their own. And it's too heavy for their small shoulders to bear.